So anyway, so you followed, right? So we have last class, so we have started our seismological model. Okay, so this is the one which we are looking for. So this is also empirical only. So the main idea is once you have data, say, okay, so once the data is there, so people will do a lot of regressions and other things they will do. So one is, like response spectrum regressions and others which we closed in our last class, that mixed effects regression and other things to predict the parameters. Okay, now there is also people have tried, like, this is also, like a empirical only, but this model is for the Fourier amplitude spectrum. Okay, so their response spectra is more important, but here it is the Fourier amplitude spectra. So the idea of this seismological model is, to develop a, to generate synthetic acceleration time histories. Okay, that is why, this model came into brand is all pure empirical. So there is no nothing. So this is what we said. So it is based on the concept of spectrum. So what it says is, the basic idea is, if I mix several sine waves, say, of different frequencies and random phase, so my time series looks random, which is exactly same as, more or less, not exactly, which is more or less similar to earthquake, the acceleration time history. So this is the idea, which comes. We will explore this after some time. Okay. So, and the most important thing what we have understood is, like, this simple rectangular function, say, it gives you a lot of insight. Last time also I told you, when we discussed the Fourier, it is a building block actually. Apart from that also, so last class we said this corner frequency. Okay, so what happens in the time domain if width is more? So what happens to corner frequency? Now what happens to the corner frequency? Decreases or increases?
It reduces.
It reduces. So this you followed, right? So we have discussed in our last class. I showed you also. Okay. So 1 second so corner frequency, which anyway, you can link it to earthquakes also. Okay, like magnitude increases, say, the rupture area, increases, and obviously corner frequency reduces. Okay, and the idea here is, whenever you see any earthquake acceleration Fourier amplitude spectra, you will see these type of shapes actual. Okay, so it's some three straight lines kind of a thing you see. So two corner frequencies we saw. Okay, and the first corner frequencies, so as already I told you, this people call as a corner frequency. So this is also corner only, but we call as the maximum frequency. It is not the Nyquist frequency. Okay, so this is how the Fourier response spectrum. So as magnitude increases, say, your corner frequency, the reduces kind of a thing. So from the data also, if you plot, no, data also shows you, see, these type of things. I think when I showed you Fourier spectra, say Mexico earthquake or something, I showed you like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we plotted. Okay, so there it was all similar. Okay, so now the idea here is, what people have done is, so they have done something like in, the empirical kind of a thing. So this decay, that is a corner frequency, the first corner frequency, say. So this portion, they say that you can represent through a simple model actually. Okay, so that's what they call as a single corner frequency model itself. And this model, as f tends to 0, it goes to m naught into f square, and if it goes this one, so you can prove also limit, f tends to infinity, where it goes, if you see, so it goes to some constant, you see, m naught into f naught square kind of a thing. So this quantity, sometimes, people also call this as a stress drop or something like that also. Okay, this plateau kind of a thing, this constant. So there are some empirical relations are there, like people have done, based on some mechanics and other things. So they say that the radius of the fault set, it is inversely proportional to corner frequency, and some analytical ways and some data, they have these type of formulas also are available actually. Okay, for shear, if you know the velocity, circular fault and others, so these things are already there. So these are all empirical, are based on some simple things itself. So here the concept is, the like this actual. Okay, so like, in your the what is that, in our structural dynamics also. So if you want to find out the response for any arbitrary forces, what do you do? So let us say I have a single degree of freedom system, and I want to find out its response, say, for some arbitrary force actual. So this is my forcing function. Now, what do you do in structural dynamics? Now, what do you do in structural dynamics? What method you use in dynamics?
हमारे gamma beta method.
Numerical, but what is the first thing what you will do? So if you have to find out for any arbitrary force, okay.
Duhamel
So what
integration.
Duhamel's integral you will do. Okay, so here also same Duhamel's integral concept is here. So this is what generally we call this as a representation theorem. Okay, so Duhamel's integral is nothing but a representation theorem only, more or less both are same. So now you will be having impulse response function. Okay, so here it is the Green's function. We call it as a Green's function. So impulse response function is response of your single degree of freedom system to a unit impulse. So here also response to a direct delta functions in time and as well as in space. See, because this is in 3D. Okay, so 3D means your force can be distributed. The forcing function, say it depends on x, y, z and t. All these numbers will be there. Okay, so now to find out Green's function, what to do is, see, how do you represent impulse in dynamics? So let us say I have impulse here at time t naught. How do you represent mathematically? What function you use? Direct delta function. So delta t minus t naught you write, say. So that means it is an impulse at time t is equal to t naught. Now I have to do a 3D impulse actually. Okay, so that is a in space as well as in time, say. So how do we write? So you remember, so now I have a function which varies with x, y, z and t. Okay, so I have to define a 3D impulse. So this is my medium, say somewhere my force is acting. So how do we write? You remember, so delta x minus x naught multiplied by delta y minus y naught, then delta z minus z naught, you followed, and delta t minus t naught, or delta t if I write, say that means the impulse is acting at 0 second itself. So this is how we write a impulse in 3D, okay, in space as well as in time multiplication of several the direct delta functions. So response of the medium, say, to this type of concentrated load, we call it as a Green's function. So Green's function is anyway same impulse response function only, but you have space as well as time, so we call this one, and this is the forcing function actually. Okay, so this quantity, say, we call as a forcing function. So that is how this integral comes. So same concept. So now here, so this portion, say, so we for earthquakes, basically what is a force on earthquake? Earthquake, what happens near the fault? What type, whether it is a force or a displacement?
Displacement.
But this displacement is a function of time also. Okay, so this is this one. So we have this medium. Okay, so this is force, this is medium actually. Okay, so same Duhamel's integral on integral f of tau h t minus tau d tau. Okay, so this is a force, this is an impulse. So now in seismic, say, instead of impulse we write as a Green's function actually. Okay, and instead of force we write as earthquake slip itself. So this is a concept, the convolution thing, it comes into picture. So now the same seismological model, whatever I told you last class, it is based on this one, but the thing, only difference is all these things are obtained, you see, empirical. Okay, the Green's functions are very difficult in a 3D closed form thing. So these are all empirically based kind of a thing. Even the source also, basically it is a slip, but in a seismological model, say, it is assumed as, you see, point source actually. So when it is a point source, say, so then so this is the integral which is acting over the fault plane, everything collapses to a simple point itself. So now why we are using derivative here? See, what is the derivative of impulse response function? Derivative, what does it give? What's the derivative of delta? The direct delta function, what's its derivative? See, like spatial derivative. Suppose if I take spatial derivative, say, what does the spatial derivative indicates of direct delta function?
Force.
What it is? Force. So direct delta function derivative is what? What does it indicate physically? Suppose if it is in space, okay, so delta x is there. So what does the derivative indicates?
Slope of the function.
No, slope, what is it that slope of the function gives you? See, delta dash, if I write, say, x minus x naught actually. So how do we represent the derivatives? You remember, no, we write that limit, h tends to 0, say, So delta x plus h minus delta x. So all those things you would have seen actually. So this indicates like one force I have delta x plus h, then minus delta of x actual. Okay, so this is like this. You have what does this tells you? And so this interval goes to 0, sir. Then automatically you will get the derivative. What is that indicates? So you have a force here, plus you are also having a lever arm actually. What is this? Now, what is the derivative indicates? So now, it is nothing but a couple actually. So generally, a derivative of direct delta function is nothing but a couple. That is how we do. So Green's function, say if I take a derivative of a Green's function, that means you are computing for a moment actually. So that is how it comes into picture. And earthquakes are shear kind of a thing, say. Okay, so that's why you see we will come back to this after some point of time when we'll do the analytical derivation. Just you may be having a doubt, like you see why I am taking a spatial derivative, because it is a movement thing, and earthquake slip is there, say whatever. This also you can represent in terms of seismic moments actually. Later on we will see that movement tensor and others we will see later on. Okay, so if you know the if you know the response for a force, say, okay, so how do you find out response for movement? So like I have a cantilever, I know the solution for force actually. Okay, now I want to find out a solution for couple which is acting at the same point, say. What is that you have to do? We have to do once again the derivation, or what is the simplest way?
Principle of superposition.
No, superposition is fine. See, if you know the result for concentrated load, say, you can find out for movement also. What is that you have to do? No.
Integration.
Integration. No. See, the derivative you have to do. So derivative of force is you followed, right? This movement comes. Okay, so if you know the solution for force, you differentiate, automatically you will get, you see, for the movement actually. So anyway, these things we will discuss later also, but this is how the things comes. So now in the seismological model, what this model does is, so this portion, that is a Green's function, others, we do all kinds of empirical kind of a format. So this is modeled as a point source. Okay, in this model, very empirical kind of a thing. So this also I showed you yesterday. This is the source function. Okay, so source affects only low frequency. That is the assumption here. Okay, so this is same figure also. Now 4 magnitude, 6 magnitude, 8 magnitude, say. So you can see the corner frequencies you followed, right? They keep on decaying actually. Okay, with the increase in the magnitude. So what they say is a source, that is a magnitude, affects only this low frequency or the first corner frequency part of the spectrum. So from the data also supports. So that is how this model is built actually. Okay. And now so we have these, so that's what I told you. So you have, this is a source function basically. So this is my source now, and these are my medium, that is a Green's function actually. You followed. Now we are writing in the frequency domain basically. Okay, now if it in time domain, if it is a Duhamel's integral, so what happens in frequency domain? See, like I have a f of tau, ht minus tau d tau. So this is my Duhamel's integral in time domain. Okay, and x of t is like this. Now what will be x bar of omega? Suppose how do you write Duhamel's integral in frequency domain? What happens? Convolution in time domain is same as
multiplication
only. So it is simply f bar omega h bar omega actually. Okay, so this is also a property actually, okay, of the Fourier transforms. So convolution in times is same as multiplication frequency domain. So here also this equation is in time domain. So now if you write this equation in frequency domain, say, it becomes simply multiplications only. Okay, so based on this concept, this seismological model also, what we try to do is we have a source, then we have the medium. So you write it in the frequency domain, because the frequency domain, it is simply the multiplication. So what this method does is we all have empirical things. Okay, so this is empirical. So this is a source. Then this is all the Green's function. We call, they are all empirical equations. You see, we try to fill up in this method. Okay, so now this is a source function. So source function, you see, we write as C m naught. Yes, I told you in the last class also. So this quantity, say, we write as 1 by 1 plus f by f naught whole square. So based on the data single corner frequency model, they say. Now this is constant C also, I told you, R theta phi VF, it comes from the radiation factor for point source. I am now showing you this is available in Aki, this one. So we have an infinite medium, say. So in an infinite medium, there is a couple, you can see here. So because earthquake sources are all shear, so you have a couple here. So for a couple, say in an infinite medium, if you derive analytically the the Navier-Stokes equations of equilibrium, say you solve it and then if you write it, so these are the displacements at any point. This is valid in spherical coordinates. Okay, so in sphere. So if you derive this equation, this is a solution how it looks like. So now if you look at this solution, say, so there are very interesting terms are there. So you can see the first term, what is how it is decaying with R. See here, and you are having terms which are decaying with R square actual. Okay, and there are also terms which are decaying as 1 by, you followed, right, R itself. So now these terms are very, very interesting. What is this first term? What does 1 by R to the power of 4 indicates? Which one will decay faster? What is that it indicates to you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms will be there.
As distance increases, the displacement will decrease.
Now displacement decreases, but how it is going to decrease? How many phases are there? No. So like if you are very close to the fault, say let us say 0.1 kilometer. Now among all these terms, which one will be dominant?
1 by R power 4.
1 by R to the power of 4 actual. Suppose if I am at 10 kilometer distance, then which term will be dominant?
1 by R.
1 by R and R 1 by R square, maybe, I don't know. Okay, so then 100 kilometer, when you are far away, say 1000 kilometers, 2000 kilometers, say, then what happens? So 1 by R to the power of 4 will be almost 0. 1 by R square also will be 0, but 1 by R term may be significant kind of a thing. Okay, so generally in the solution, so this portion, say this dominates in the near field actual. So this is known as near field term. Okay, then we have these two things. So IP stands for intermediate actually. So 1 by R square, say this we call as intermediate. And these are far field actually. So the last two things. And now here also there are two things are there. If you see these integrals, these equations carefully, alpha you have. So there is a alpha is here. Here there is a beta. Both of them are same actually. Only alpha, beta. Alpha is P wave velocity. Okay, and beta is shear wave velocity. Now among these two things, say P wave and shear wave, so which one will have more amplitude? This or this?
Shear wave.
Why? Because shear wave amplitudes will be high because our earthquakes are
Shear.
But if it is a bomb blast or something, so then then P wave will be the most dominant actual. And the expressions for this AIS, so these are what we call as radiation patterns or something. So that is given by some complicated, the expressions are the theta, phi and other things comes into picture. So the seismological model, what these people have done is, so this constant basically, okay, that R theta phi VF, 4 pi rho R beta cube into R naught, say. So this quantity, so this has been borrowed from, this model. So which term they have taken among all the 5 terms? So see this expression carefully. R theta phi VF by 4 pi rho cube beta S cube R naught. So which term they have taken? Now in among these 5 terms, which is the one which has been taken?
Last term.
The last term 4 pi rho by beta cube actually you followed, right? So the seismological model, the main assumption is shear waves are the one which is a dominant. So they go with the last term. So all these terms are neglected actually. Okay, so that means whatever this seismological models, it is valid at near field, or it is whether it is valid at near field.
No, sir.
So it is valid at the far field. So this stuff. So this model is like a hodgepodge kind of a thing. So you have something little bit analytical and more empirical. It is a mixed kind of a thing. So this only constant you followed, right? They took from this model, and this AFS, whatever you are seeing here. So this is what they call as a radiation pattern, which is R theta phi. So this also has been averaged at some 1/√2 or something. So this code takes actual. Okay, so this is a constant. And now this is a source model. So source is basically a point source, and we use the single corner frequency model. So this is a purely empirical. So based on the data they have found out and simply followed it, they have fitted actual. And the high frequency amplitude say, so that is m0 into delta square I showed you, see, as yeah, this one, so it becomes, you see, constant kind of a thing you have. Okay, so this also I told you m0 into f cube, so this goes to a constant. So this they are calling as the stress drop actually. So keeping the magnitude same, so if stress drop is more, then the intermediate portion of your acceleration spectrum, it automatically increases. But low frequencies, nothing will happen actually. So now coming to the path, say, so that is a Green's function. Okay, so this already I showed you the Green's function. So there are two things. One is source terms, other one is a medium terms. So medium only you followed it, it just absorbs energy. So that's what we told, two types of damping will be there. So geometrical spreading and elastic damping. So already I showed you. Okay, so loss of energy for 1/r or 1 by something. Then this is anyway equivalent to your damping. Okay, this is also a very important thing. And I showed you that you can derive this, this entire expression say from your dynamics. So e to the power of eta omega t. Okay, so that automatically from that you can derive this function. Okay, so last class I told you. So this what is a q of f?
1 by damping.
Yeah, 1 by damping. So 1 by eta. So pi anyway, the 2 pi that is immaterial for us. But f will be there, then r, so r by c, c is a velocity, so r by c will be time actual. Okay, then omega f, pi f, they are all same, so eta becomes a q of f. So this we call as, you see, quality factor. Okay, I told you for concrete and steel, say how to take this quality factor itself. Now, so this is how the model does. So we have a source function, and then we have this path actual. Okay, that is the Green's function. So in the seismological model, the Green's function, what it does is it only damps the energy itself, and this constant, say, it comes from analytical derivations. Okay, like that, you see. So this has been done, and there is one more term people have added is the site amplification. See, generally in our the earthquake engineering, say, what they say is medium means rock and other things will be there, but the top 20 to 30 meter of the soil where your site is located, say, that also amplifies. You would have studied actual site amplification. So this term has come last 20-30 years only. Okay, saying that the site amplification is very, very important, and non-linearity and so many things have done. So what they have done is in seismological model, people have added this term also, that is a site amplification. So there are three things. One is this, anyway, it comes from the analytical thing. So this is the source, this is the medium, that is a geological medium, they say. Okay, so geological medium is the next terms, which consists of two dampings, and this one is the site term. Okay, the site term or whatever is it, the site amplification and others. So this is how it comes. And now suppose if you are computing at bedrock, say at the rock level, so the site amplification will be unity actual. Okay, it doesn't play any role. But if you are located on the top of the loose soil or very soft rock or something, then you have to use some terms actual. Okay, so that is how it comes. So these are the functions I already showed you. So m0, f by fc and other things are there. And now one more interesting thing is this corner frequency. It is related to delta sigma and m0, say, through this this formula. Okay, that is from circular fault followed, and they have found out this issue also. So then the shear wave velocity, Vs, is the shear wave velocity of the medium itself. Then diminution function, that is your Green's function. So we have two dampings. One is a geometric damping, other one is this anelastic damping itself. So now what type of damping we use in structural dynamics? See, what type of damping you have used in dynamics generally?
Viscous damping.
Viscous damping only. But when you do multi-story buildings, how did you select the damping? What type of damping you use generally?
Relay damping.
Rayleigh damping. But when it comes to modes, say what is that you did? Suppose if you want to do for a this building, say like multi-story, single multi-degree of freedom system. So a multi-degree of freedom system, let us say it is a 10-story building. Okay, so 10-story building means what do? You get the natural frequencies, you normal that orthogonality you use, and you break this 10-story building into 10 single-story buildings. So 10 frequencies will be there, 10 modes or 10 frequencies will be there. Now for each frequency, what damping you used in dynamics? So first natural frequency, let us say some 1 Hertz, then 1.5 Hertz, second natural frequency, like that, you see 10 Hertz or something, you see the last natural frequency. Now what damping you use this one, what damping you used for this, what damping you use, you do what damping you use. Now in dynamics, what is that to do? And if it is RCC building, what damping you will use?
We can calculate from Rayleigh damping relating to mass and stiffness.
So that is fine, but that is what you use in practice. See, Rayleigh damping is fine, but what do you do in practice? When you are analyzing SAP or you followed, right? Multi-story buildings. So what is the damping you use? No. So you have frequency, that is the modes. Okay, 10 modes means 10 frequencies. What is the damping value you use? That is eta in dynamics or in earthquake analysis. What do people do? Let us say RCC structures. What do we do? For all the modes, what will be the damping?
5%.
5%. So what does it mean? See what type of damping you have used with the modes, whether you are changing the damping value. Even our IS code also, IS 1893, if you see, they say 5% is for RCC. So how do you, but your multi-story building will have so many natural frequencies, 100 story means 100 frequency will be there. But what value of damping you are using in all the modes? You are using? That is what you have to tell. Okay, the constant damping you follow, right? So the damping is a constant kind of a thing. That is what we do in regular. Okay, Rayleigh damping is anyway, that is fine. But generally in earthquakes, say steel buildings, say what to do irrespective of your mode, whether your mode has 10 Hertz or 20 Hertz or whatever, we use a 2% damping itself. Okay, that is how the damping is. So now, but in earthquake engineering or the seismology, so when you are modeling the geological medium, so this is not valid actually. This becomes a problem, and earth, say our earth has of course RCC means material may be same, but earth means so many geological layers and so many things will be there. So this damping is not the valid actual. So what they do is a frequency dependent damping we use basically. Okay, so this is a frequency dependent damping. That is why we write as Q naught into f to the power of n actual. Suppose in dynamics, if you want a constant, say n, this exponent, this you make it 0. Okay, so then it becomes constant damping actually. Okay, so even the data also doesn't support this constant damping. So in seismology or the earthquake acceleration, say you have to use a frequency dependent damping only. Okay, so something like that. So what type of damping it is? So this is a frequency dependent, how it looks like if you try to plot it on a computer, say. So Q of f versus this f naught. So this f, how does it looks like? And let us say I take logarithm log Q of f. How does it looks like if you try to plot?
Y equal to mx plus c.
So it is a straight line. In ordinary it is exponent, but if you try to plot, so it will have something like this. Okay, so how this the qualitative factor is happening? So something like a straight line, it may be like this, or the straight line maybe you followed right like this also. Okay, so something like a straight line kind of a thing. You see, we use it in practice. Okay. So now this Q naught, so this you have to derive from the data, and of course this is not required nowadays, and this is the controlling factor. Okay, so this also I told you this came from the analytical solution. So this is how the magnitudes 5, 6, 7 and 8 say that empirical equation if you try to plot on a computer keeping stress drop same. Okay, what is happening? Now what is changing? So your corner frequency is only changing with these terms actually. Okay, so this is effect of magnitude. Then this is the stress drop. So same magnitude, but if I increase my stress drops at 50, 100, 200 bars, so this portion of the spectrum, it gets changed. Corner frequency remains more or less same, but this portion of the spectrum, you see, it gets affected due to this delta sigma. Okay, and now this is for the the medium, that is the quality factor. So if the quality factor is very high, say, what does it tells you? Quality factor is increasing means
Damping value very less.
now damping is very less. That is how you followed it. It turns out to be. Now so as the distance increases, what happens? So as a distance like 10 kilometer, 50 kilometer, 200 kilometers. So to where, what will happen to damping? Because you are far away from the source, say. So you have, so what should happen? Decay should be there or decay should not be there?
Decay should be there.
So now, so 200 kilometer, you can see this portion is getting, this is at 50, this is at 10 kilometers actually, because you have that quality factor and all other dampings are there. So you will see this type of damping also. So your damping is there. So your medium is affecting which portion of the spectrum, whether this quality factor plays any role here?
No, sir.
So your quality factor plays a role at the high frequency end itself. So that is how this theory comes. Then this is one more damping, that is a kappa factor we use actually. Okay, so this indicates a site amplification. As I told you, right, if you are located on soil sites and others, say, so you will have another extra. So like medium has one quality factor, then soil means that itself will have another damping basically. So what happened, that is quantified through this kappa factor or something, you see, they say. So this kappa factor is very small, say. It indicates very loose soil actually. If kappa is very high, say, sorry, it's very small, say, this indicates hard rock kind of a thing. Okay, so what does it tells you? So for hard rock actually, what about the high frequencies? For our, so high frequencies will have energy for some more for soil or for rock? No, so which has more high frequencies, rock or soil?
Rock.
No, so obvious physically also, right, soil is a flexible or a rigid material?
Flexible.
So flexible means it will not take high frequency. It will be unresponsive. So rigid materials only are very responsive for this high frequencies. So these are all empirical. Okay, so there is no mechanics, nothing here. Just by looking at the data and by mixing these empirical terms, so this method came actually. Okay, so these are the inputs: magnitude, delta sigma, then geometrical spreading, that is 1 by r to the power of n, they write actually. Okay, so this is one geometrical spreading. Then anelastic damping, that is a q naught f to the power of n actually. Okay, then site parameters. So these things you have to use only if you want to compute on a soil set. Say like for example Indo-Ganga basin, or when is river sediments or something is there. So then this has amplification. Soil also amplifies something. Then this extra damping, say, for the soil also has to be included in the model. Okay, so these are the inputs for this model. So the methodology is very simple actually. So the first step in this model is we will generate a white noise. Okay, on a computer. What do you mean by white noise? Have anybody knows this white noise? What is the meaning of white noise? Have you heard this term, white noise? No, it is not color of the noise. See, white noise means but I have plotted as black only. You followed, right? So that is not the color of the noise. So white noise is a term which contains all frequencies basically. Okay, and suppose if you plot the Fourier amplitude spectra of this white noise, say, it will be like this, more or less constant actually. So this is frequency, and this is amplitudes. What does it tells you? If I have 1 hertz, 2 hertz, 10 hertz, 100 hertz, 50 hertz, whatever you have, say, all their amplitudes are
Almost same.
same actually. So this is like a signal. It is like white color, right? What do you mean by white color? It contains
All ones.
all the colors, right? White color contains, you know, right, that some spectrum, that prism, gism you would have studied actually. So white means it contains all kinds of colors are there in this white, this one. So the white, so this word comes from this, you know, white noise means it contains all frequencies. So theoretically specified, it contains all frequencies starting from 0 to 100 hertz actually. Okay, that is the meaning of this one. So 0 to, sorry, infinity, sorry, that infinity, you know, all frequencies will be there and all frequency amplitudes are same. That is the definition of white noise. It is exactly same as white color contains all colors and, you know, something like that. So this you have to generate it on the computer, but in a computer, you know, you cannot generate 0 to infinity or you know, something like that. So what we do in our computers, say we do colored noise generally. Colored noise is also same as white noise only, but because we can't go from 0 to infinity, say. So in earthquakes, you know, how many frequencies, what is the highest frequency for the earthquakes generally? You plotted, no, all, it is
20.
no, you have 20 you are saying, but you have plotted, no, for all, I think Koina also I showed you, you have downloaded the first assignment, right? What is your comment, 20 or what is that?
Nyquist frequency is the highest frequency.
Nyquist frequency, what was the Nyquist frequency for your data you downloaded, no, from an Indian data or abroad, whatever? No.
By 2
Yeah,
delta.
some 50 hertz.
50 hertz was there. I think Japan data, if you see, they go up to 100 hertz also generally. Okay, so generally, you know, you can take 0 to 100 hertz to be on the safe side. Okay, so if you want to generate white noise, what you have to do is you have to generate all the frequencies from 0 to 100 hertz. But theoretically, white noise means 0 to infinity. But on a computer, I know you can't infinity, and in earthquakes anyway, you know, we don't have energy. You followed it more than 20 hertz itself, we don't have energy. But to be on the safe side, and you know, this one, so we do this colored noise. Okay, so 0 to 100 hertz. So which means, you know, this highest is 100, but amplitudes all are same actually. Okay, so equal strength, you know, you have given to all the frequencies. So this you have to generate. So this is the first step, is you should be able to generate white noise on the computer. In MATLAB already you have a command RAND. Okay, so you can try this RAND, you know, uniform, you know, white noise or something it generates. You try it in the MATLAB. Okay, or Gaussian noise also you can generate. There's so many things are the RAND command. All of you go back and see it in MATLAB, you will understand. So now you generate a white noise in MATLAB. Okay, so now the duration of this white noise, say, so 0 to 25 seconds or something. So duration depends on what? You have downloaded, no, like 4 magnitude, 5 magnitude, 6 magnitude, 7 magnitude. So whose duration will be higher?
7 magnitude.
And how do you find out the duration? The ground motion parameters we have discussed. What do you mean by duration?
We use significant duration.
That is Hussite plot. Okay, T5, T95, you know already. For 7 magnitude, what much what will be the duration? For 5, you know this one. So this you fix it up actually. Okay, and then you know, you use a RAND command in MATLAB, and then you simulate this white noise. So now for this white noise, so now white noise, you know, because it is you know, not done, it all are equal, no? It will be like this only, no decay, it will not die at all with the time. But earthquake time histories, you know, they have to die actually. So we use something like, you know, windowing the noise, we say. Okay, so we multiply this noise with a, you know, so I have white noise which is like this. So I will multiply this with a envelope function. Something like this. Okay, so when I multiply that white noise with this envelope functions, I will get windowed noise actually. So there are some lot of techniques are there. Okay, Saragoni and Hart technique, so many, you know, variety like this envelope function say. So if you have to have a decay, so you can take as e to the power of minus alpha t also. Okay, there is another function t to the power of minus alpha t also. Okay, so e to the power of alpha t means the function will be like this. So if I multiply this with this, say, I will get similar to earthquakes. Okay, or t into alpha e to the power of minus alpha t, it will be like this actually, this function. Or there are functions also, the e to the power of minus alpha t minus e to the power of minus beta t also. So then Sarogoni and Hart model, like that, there are empirical functions are there. So because your time history should look like an earthquake acceleration time history, that is the idea. So this white noise, it doesn't look like an earthquake acceleration time history. So this step is required. So this is also empirical, and alpha, beta, or this Sarogoni Hart has some parameters like epsilon, eta, ft, and all of them have to be based on the magnitude. Like people have found out the duration, and they have fitted some functions like this, and so these things has been estimated. So this is a second step. So you have to window the noise actually. Now this is the Fourier amplitude spectrum of white noise. Okay, so your Fourier amplitude spectra of white noise is a. So it looks like this. Now how it is looking like? So this person, he has taken from which frequency to which frequency? Now what is the lowest frequency here?
0.001.
0.001, but that depends on what is the lowest frequency present in the signal. If the signal has a duration t, what is its frequency? Lowest frequency 1 by
1 by capital.
1 by capital T. So if you have generated up to 25 seconds, say, so lowest frequency present in the signal will be
1 by 25.
1 by 25. Highest frequency
1 by 2 delta.
1 by 2 delta T.
So these things you should never forget, okay, in signal processing when like time series. So this is a white noise. Now how it is looking like, this white noise? Is it looking like an earthquake acceleration spectra? What are the amplitudes? So do you see any corner frequency here? Nothing can be seen, because white noise, as already told you, it's a flat thing, is flat actually. You followed, because of course this is only one sample of white noise. If you generate several samples and average, say, you will get a plot like this actually, okay, constant, because I told you, right, white noise means all frequencies will have same amplitude actually, okay, that is the thing. So white noise is this one. So but I have a time history which looks like earthquake acceleration, but unfortunate thing is, it doesn't, its amplitudes are not like earthquake things. So here in the seismological model, what to do is, first thing is that you normalize its area. Okay, so that is a RMS value you find out, say. So RMS means all of right, a square t dt, and then you 1 by t. You remember that a RMS, ground motion parameters you would have done. So you divide by its energy, say. So the whole energy of this white noise, you reduce it to one kind of a thing or something. You normalize. Now what we do is, so we generate the spectra. So this red line you are seeing, right? So this red line comes from these equations. You remember that e to the power of I pi cube multiplying this one site response and this one, say. So I will generate, so I have a spectrum. So my white noise thing is like this actually, okay, in frequency domain, it is also constant. Now this I have to multiply by this type of a function, which comes from that seismological model itself. So this function, it has a corner frequency. This depends on this one. So this portion depends on stress drop. This portion depends on the site. So I multiply this with this function. So this has to be multiplied by my this function, which comes from my that seismological, that Green's function or whatever I showed you, right? So when I multiply this with this in frequency domain, so what happens is my thing looks like this. Now this black one is looking like earthquake thing.
Yes, sir.
This one was not looking like earthquake, but now it is looking, because you have multiplied, you followed it with our function. So now once you have multiplied, say, then you do IFFT, you follow, because you are doing everything in the frequency domain. So now you do the IFFT. So you will get a acceleration time history. The Fourier amplitude spectra of this acceleration time history will look like this one only. You followed. So this is a very, very easy thing, but you have to do 2 times multiplication. The first multiplication is in the time domain. That is, you generate a white noise. It looks very, like this actually. It doesn't look. So you have to multiply this with this type of a envelope function to look like a time history. Then you Fourier transform it, and its Fourier amplitude spectra also doesn't look like earthquakes actual. So this you multiply by this function actual. Okay, so then you will get, so 2 multiplication, 1 multiplication in frequency domain, 1 multiplication in time domain, and finally you take IFFT. That is, IFFT command is there in MATLAB, right? You will get a beautiful, you followed it, earthquake acceleration time history actual. So this, so the units and other things, automatically, if you use correct magnitude and other, movements and others, so units also you can easily actually fix it up actually. So this is how, you know, in earthquake acceleration time histories are generated synthetically. So this is for one sample. Now in MATLAB, when you use rand command, say, like you generate one sample, computer, no, if you ask another sample, so you will get a different answer because it is a random thing, right? You can generate several time histories. Their PGA maybe, or their even the Fourier amplitude spectra, say. Like if we generate 10 samples, let us say this is the original function, that is this y of this function. The first sample may be like this actually. The second sample may be, you see, like this. Third sample also may be like this. But their average, if I do average of 10 samples, it will be more or less close to this itself. So you can generate ensemble and you can use in our design. And this has all the properties, you know, every, it exactly looks like your, you know, the exact time history itself. So that is what, you know, same thing only. So the first step, you simulate a white noise, you window it, multiply by this, you know, this type of a function. That function is also empirical. Then you take Fourier amplitude, but its energy, you normalize the Fourier amplitude spectra so that energy has been compressed to 1. Then you multiply by this blue line actually to look like an earthquake acceleration time history, and then you do IFFT. Say, I will get back my acceleration time history. That is a simple concept, very, very simple of generating synthetic acceleration time histories. Now, so how is this method? You know, what is your comment on this method? Whether it looks fine, this methodology of generating accelerations.
Seems to not okay.
No, whether this method is fine for you, like, you know, this is okay. No. What is your comment is after this methodology?
Okay, sir.
Oh, okay, that is fine. It is okay only, but see, can you comment on the method? What type of method is this? It is analytical method or it is a empirical method, or what type of method is there?
Analytical, we can give it name, sir, because we are using the multiplication function 2 times for analytical.
No, that is fine. That is analytic. No, but the overall methodology. See, the methodology generally in our, like for beam, say, if I want to find out the deflection, say, like, you know, we write our equations of motion, no? M is equal to EI d square y by dx square. You solve it and you will get a closed form solution. But this method, what is the starting point in this method? So if somebody asks,
function which is empirical.
they are all empirical. Even the methodology is also. See, the exact mathematical thing is different. You follow, right? Exact mathematical thing is this equation I showed you, no, this one, where we are. This is the one. So this is exact mathematical way. But you know, you have so it is, this method is something like, you know, you have borrowed a little bit from mechanics. You borrowed something from the data and some calibration here and there, and you mix it up and you develop a time history actually. See, strictly speaking, this method doesn't have any, you know, you can't call, you know, you followed it. What type of method is there? Because you have mixed data, you have mixed empirical, and if you ask a question, say, why I should generate white noise? So now, whether this method is analytical or empirical or random method also, because you are using white noise generation, and then, you know, you are doing all kinds of, you know, khichdi you followed, right? You have mixed this, that, this, and this, you followed, right? So what happens when you mix so many things? When you mix analytical, you have borrowed C, that constant var theta phi. Then from the data, you have borrowed this constant S of 1 by 1 plus F by F naught square. So these are all comes from the data only. So you have taken this, then you have taken white noise you are doing once again, and you are mixing up all these things. Say, what happens when you mix so many vegetables and so many things?
Khichdi.
No, nice biryani will be there. You followed, right? And everybody likes that only. You followed, no? So I think you would have seen, right, in COVID time, the highest sales was there for biryani only. Okay. So anyway, so finally the thing is, although the method, you know, you may ask so many questions. You may ask, sir, why I should multiply by this? Why I should take a white noise? You followed, right? So there is no answers for all these things. But one good thing is, you know, after doing all these type of things, it works actually. That's all. You follow, right? It works in practice. See, finally, at the end of the day, the product works. That's all. So this methodology was criticized long back. People said useless, this, that. So many issues was there. But finally, it works in practice. That's all. So don't ask questions, you see. So simply use this method. So you don't ask, we don't question why I should multiply this, why I have to do this, why I should select only Q of F, why I should do this one. It's immaterial, but finally it works in practice. That's all. Okay, it's a nice, biryani kind of a thing. So this is a method. So it's all empirical. So now the problem is, if you want to simulate, say, okay, for your, region, okay. So like, for example, if I want to use this model for peninsular India, now, how do I use this model? What are the inputs? What are the inputs in this model? Now, magnitude. What magnitude you want to simulate, the distance, what site you want to simulate, then stress drop actually, delta sigma you have to fix, then radiation damping, that is I told it 1 by r to the power of n, then the quality factor actual, which is a frequency dependent damping, then we have the site amplification. Suppose if you are simulating on some soil, say, so site amplification is kappa value, then the soil amplification also. So all these things have to be estimated actually, you followed. So anyway, magnitude R no need to estimate because that is already decided by the location of your fault and other things. So these things have to be estimated for the, you have to calibrate. Okay. So now this you have to do. So now for peninsular India, for northeastern India, so now I will see, suppose, so these parameters have to be calibrated here. Okay. So this, people have done a lot of, trying to fit this model to the data. So like, for example, you can see here, these are the time histories. That is a recorded data. Okay, this is a distance is here, and this is a time. Now what is happening as the distance increases? Now what is happening? See, as distance is increasing, say, what is happening to this time histories? So the time histories are plotted in vertical. Like this. They have plotted this one. You followed. So they have plotted like this time histories. What is that you can observe here? Very, very close to epicenter. So what was the duration?
Duration is small.
It was very small. Now you can identify some patterns here. So when at far away, so 500 kilometer distance, duration has increased actual. But you can see so many phases, right? See here, small, you followed it, this peak. So you have one line here, that is the starting times or whatever you have. Apart from that, you also have something like, these extra, you followed it. These waves are also coming into picture. What are these waves? You followed it. You are having so many, the phases will be there. I told you, right? Surface waves, so many things we have seen also. So this is how, it happens actually. Okay, now amplitude. So amplitude also will be there. Then even the duration also say this also, decreases with distance, increases with the, the distance itself. So based on this, people have found out, the damping, you followed it, that quality factor and all those things from the data itself. So the log Fourier amplitude spectra, so distance, you followed it, people have found out all these things. So this is a geometrical spreading. So there is, people have found out, like, see, from the data, like initially it's up to 50 kilometer 1 by r actual. Then it remains constant, then it remains 1 by 170. Some complicated, forms have come up actually. Then for anelastic damping, say, so this also, I told you that frequency dependent damping we use. So this is how the looks like. So this anyway you forget about it. So you can see California, many places say. So for Central Eastern United States, this is my damping. Now what is your comment? When you plot in log only, you will get this one. Okay. What is the comment here? So this is, I think, 1 by Q he has plotted, I think. So what is happening as frequency increases? So whether this, so this is from the data they have found out. So it is basically, your Q value is, 1 by Q is decreasing. So your Q value will increase kind of a thing. Okay. So that is how also, it has been found out. So this also, some models are there. So many complication things are there, like path duration, site response say. So this also, this generally, comes from, you see, the soil mechanics. They use that Shake software and other things, soil amplification for this. You can find out kappa also for this type of functions. Okay. So what I will do is, I have sent you some papers actually. So rock amplification, other things. I have sent you 2 papers in WhatsApp. All of you have received, right?
Yes, sir.
So I will just show you. So they are very important. See the first paper which I have sent you, say this is in so we have calibrated this model for northeastern India. Okay, so I have explained in detail the frequency dependent damping. How do we estimate from the data? I suggest it's a very easy thing only, but this is a data. So like you say, for northeast India, say we have lots of data. Okay, that from Cosmos website or something. So we collect all this data set. Now we have to calibrate the seismological model. So I told you, right, in the seismological model, what are the unknowns? Magnitude, distance, that is you remove, stress drop, then you have to find out kappa factor of the site, quality factor, radiation damping, and all other things have to be estimated. So these are the sites in northeast India, okay, which that old Cosmos website, they were maintaining. IIT Roorkee, these are the stations here. Cherrapunji is there, you can see. Haflong, so these are many nice places. And so this RS has got some 4 or I think 4, 5, 6, 7 earthquakes are there. So some are Indo-Burma, in northeast, right? So we have two types of regions. Indo-Burma region where depths will be very, very high, 50 kilometer, 122, like that it happens. Whereas other places, 15, 34, like that it happens. Okay, so these are the stations. So these are what we call as subduction zones, 5.9, 7.2, 6.4, 6.1, say they occur on this side, whereas these things, say I think 5.9 is there. Where is other one? I think I forgot. Where somewhere here it will be there. Okay, the epicenters. So using this data, say, okay, so now this is our seismological model. You can see here. So source function is the same expression, then corner frequency, then G e to the power of this itself. So C, this anyway is analytical constant actual. Then, but the geometric damping, you see, we take some like 1 by 10 times root R or something, you followed it, 1 by R, 1 by 10 times root R we take here. So now for the site amplification, say, we write as A into P of F, where this P of F, that is a kappa factor. So kappa is also a decay, okay, e to the power of minus pi k naught into F. So k naught is a kappa factor. So that also I have to find out. So kappa factor I have said, okay. So this I have done, you can go through the data. So from the data, say, so this kappa value has been found out, and then we have found out some interesting patterns for soft rock, then for firm ground, say. So as the distance is increasing, what is happening to the kappa value? It increases. There is a lot of scatter, so which means it is not only soil and ground, but it also increases because of the distance also. So then the amplification has been estimated. Then the quality factor, which is the most important thing, say. So this we have estimated for the northeast India. Okay, so now everybody is using these numbers now. So we have calibrated nicely this model now. So this is the quality factor. You can see here now. This is the correct one actually. I think that figure had some other issues was there. So now this is a quality factor. So now this is a frequency dependent damping. Now as I told you, right, in your structural dynamics multi-degree you have used a constant damping. Whatever may be the frequency or quality factor will remain constant. Now what is your comment now? So for 10 hertz and 1 hertz, say which has high quality factor?
10.
So quality factor is increasing with frequency. So what happens to 1 by Q, reciprocal?
The damping reduces.
Damping. So for 10 hertz, the quality factor is high. So what happens? Eta is equal to 1 by Q. You followed, right? So 1 by 100 you followed it. Damping also reduces actually. So damping shows other kind of curve itself. Okay. So this is how to obtain from the data. So these are all the points you can see. These are dot 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 dot. So this has been estimated at that particular frequency from the data, and then you fit some kind of a straight line to get the numbers itself. Okay, so you please go through this paper. So the seismological model is very, very easy. There is no big deal, as I told you, right? It is a khichdi kind of a thing only, but it works in practice. Okay, that is the advantage of this model. And the estimation is also very easy. Okay, so we have, I think I have explained in detail in this paper. So if you read this, and I have plotted also, like, and this quality factor, say it is a property of the region, like Northeast India, Indian Shield, South India, and this quality factor says different for different places. It depends on the type of the rocks, type of the material available in that region also. Okay. So and then stress drop has to be estimated. So stress drop also I've explained you how do we calibrate to the data. I think where I have reported stress drop. Okay. So finally, say you can see here response spectra. Now this is at Cherrapunji. What is your comment? Recorded spectra is that line. Simulated is this dotted line. What is your comment? Whether it is working or not working?
Working.
It is a khichdi, but it works. It works nicely in the practice, and it is a very easy. No need for me to know anything about seismic things or something like that. With few inputs, say I can generate the time histories. You remember? So I have shown you Java many stations. Okay, so it nicely matches with the data sets. I think where is the stress drop above? I think I would have reported in a table maybe. So if you go above, I think the table I have reported, yes. So this I have reported this table. So this stress drop you can see here 270, 282, 260, 128. So this also we have got from the data itself. So how to find out these parameters say. So this model has been calibrated. So this paper I suggest all of you to go through. So that is for the Northeast India. There was one more paper also I have sent you. So this is for the Himalayas. We have updated the things, okay, because PESMOS data came into picture. This is our Indian PESMOS thing. So Himalaya North, I think. So now there are so many stations, the PESMOS, no, so many things came into picture. So the same method only. There is nothing, we have done nothing new. Okay, the same thing we have taken and simply calibrated this model. So these are all the so many earthquakes was there in my old paper at that time. Data was not there. But after PESMOS came, say so many earthquakes occurred in Himalaya. Some 52, I think, I don't know. 52 in Himalaya, then 4 in Andaman, then 6 in the Indo-Ganga basin. So for all these stations, say we have done this calibration. Okay, the stress drops, and kappa factors and other things. I think we have found out from this data set itself. So these are the data. Delhi, Kalkaji, it was recorded actually. Some earthquake magnitude was okay 4.8. Now. So then using this you followed, right? So we have calibrated the same model, and you can see Indo-Burmese region you followed, right? We have got these numbers also. So we have estimated and it works in practice. So this is how you see the seismological model, it works. So all of you followed, right? You of course your calibration will be difficult. If you are interested, say you try, you try to do these calibrations, or at least if you are able to run it, it is fine. So all of you, what you have to do is you have to go to this website of Professor David Boer. Okay, so he is a seismologist. Nice. So you have to go to this Boer USGS. Okay, type this one. So you go to his online software. So now here he gives you the stochastic method simulation. All of you are able to see, right? This SimSim.
Yes, sir.
Now the SimSim. So this is a set of Fortran codes he gives you. So all of you download this SimSim software. So here you have a paper. He gives that paper. Where is that? So for obtaining the programs for SimSim, okay. So he gives the manual, then SimSim source code and associated files, executables also he gives you. That is a Windows executable. But if you want, you can copy this source code, the Fortran codes also he gives you. Okay, so download this software. He gives a nice manual also. Okay, how to use his code. Same whatever I showed you. His codes are the same things. How to use this code. He gives a nice description also. You can go through his code also, and what should be the input, how you should change the inputs, everything he gives. There are so many programs are there, but he nicely explains, like like for example, say GMR with GMTD. So like you can do a batch mode, or you can run at a particular site. So you have a lot of things. So you can see ATS, DRVR, say saves acceleration time histories. So everything he explains nicely in this manual. So all of you, please download this, and you please go through this manual. And then what you have to do is use simulate actually. See, for Northeast India, you have to, or Himalayas, say you have to simulate synthetic acceleration time histories. Okay, like in Himalaya, 8 magnitude will occur now. At Delhi, I want to find out the time history. And now what is that you have to do? So for Himalaya Northeast, I want to simulate, say. Now what is that I have to do? So you have the Fortran code with you. You have the executables are there, inputs are there, everything is there. What is that you have to do? Now, what inputs you should use for Himalayas or for Northeast India? Now for Northeast India, if you want to simulate actual, so what value you should use? You come to my this paper. So I have given you stress drop, I have given you, then I have given you the quality factor for Northeast India. What is the quality factor I showed you? Where is that figure? So the quality factor for Northeast India is this one, 431 f to the power of 0.7. So this I have already given you. Kappa factor also I have given you in the paper. Delta sigma also you can randomize 270 or 100 or whatever you take, and then you simulate time histories, you see, at Delhi or whatever you like, say whether in Northeast Guwahati or Shillong or something, or maybe in Delhi, or maybe in Himalaya. So if you want to do for Himalayas, say you take this paper. Actually I have sent you both the papers. So the all the material properties, what inputs you have to use, I have given in this two papers. So all of you, what you have to do is you take the inputs from these papers, take Bourse programs. Okay, so Professor Bourse programs are there. So the input files he has given very dead easy actually. Okay, so you simulate, and then time history is see, you have to produce from the seismological model. Okay, so this is how he does. So this is input file. Okay, rho beta, rho is the shear wave velocity, beta is rho is the density, beta is the shear wave velocity, partition factor, radiation factor. This no need to change. Okay, beta rho also, then spectral shape, single corner, then you have to give stress drop, that is 80. Then you have geometrical damping, then you have a QR1, this is anelastic damping. So then path duration, he gives site amplification if you are simulating for a soil site, say site diminution, kappa value. So he gives so many parameters. So all of you download this, you play around this programs. Okay, so that you will make them familiarize, and then your next assignment say is going to be, you should be able to simulate a synthetic ground motion for some of the sites in Himalayas and in Northeast. Okay, so this is going to be your next assignment. Now, so fine. Okay, so this we will stop here. So we will continue in the next class. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can ask me.